So, Joe Drumgoole.
So, I'm going to talk to you today about two things: delays and deficits. Speak up. So that was a 45-second delay. And I can tell you right now, that stressed me out quite a bit, even though I knew it was coming, right? And it clearly made the audience pretty uncomfortable because we got people shouting out. You've got to release yourself. And I did that because I want you to understand some of the challenges that people face with a thing like social anxiety. You know, you just had a little flavor of it there, that you tipped your tongue in social anxiety, and now you're all released and you feel, oh, thank God. I thought that was going to be one of these car crash talks. You know, he's came off a plane, he's just locked up, it's going to be a disaster, we're all going to have to get him to go to a hospital. And I've done this. I feel such sympathy for first-time speakers and for public speakers in general. I've been doing this for about 25 years now, and I still remember the first public speaking event I ever attended. It was in a university in York in northern England in 1987, and I was so blissfully ignorant that I never did any training. I just rocked up on stage, and the minute I stood on stage, I actually thought I was having a stroke, right? I mean, what you saw there was exactly what happened. I stood on stage, I literally could not open my mouth. And eventually, some kind soul brought me a glass of water, and I opened my top button, and I did a 25-minute presentation in about 8 minutes. It was super quick. It was like zoom. And I still remember that. And that is a delay, right? That's a delayed skill. It's a skill I hadn't learned yet. And I have spent quite a bit of time since then acquiring public speaking skills. And you know, now I think I'm kind of okay at it. But it took time and energy and effort, but I could overcome it. And most of our learning is about delays. It's about the gap between what we know and we don't know. And most of the technology and software you're going to run across is going to fill those gaps for you. It's going to anchor you in a place where you don't know something and bring you to a place where you do know something. Now, I have another challenge. I have a condition called dyscalculia. Dyscalculia is a very strange condition for a computer scientist to have. I can't do mental arithmetic, like not at all, right? So I'm going to ask a couple of people to shout out integers. Jack, integers is what I said out of the order. I need 4 or 5 integers.
7, 3, 2, 11.
Okay. Now, I'm actually trying to remember those numbers, and that's not happening. And if I tried to add them up, and even thinking about it now, I can tell you right now, even though I know I was going to do this, I can still feel a tightness in my chest. I can still feel the flush of the blood vessels contracting in my face, the adrenaline dumping in my belly. It's an autonomic response. And even though I knew it was coming, even though I planned for it, it still happened. This is a deficit. Right? I can't teach myself to not freak out when somebody gets me to do mental arithmetic. Even though I knew it was coming, I planned for it, I can still feel it. I'm literally still like glowing inside. And that's the fundamental difference between a deficit and delay. I have a worse deficit. I have asthma. Asthma is one of these non-communicable diseases that is, you know, bad news. But like most asthma sufferers, I I believed that, other people die of asthma, not me. I'm like perfect, and nothing's going to go wrong with me. So I went off my meds on a trip around the world about, it was 1997. And then I got to Australia, and unbeknownst to me, because I was about as ignorant as any person could be about everything in the world in those days, Australia is the asthma capital of the world. And I had a massive asthma attack in Alice Springs, and luckily we were near an ER. We got medicated and everything's fine. But I can tell you right now, I am never more than an hour away from my asthma medication, and have never been more than an hour away from my asthma medication for the last, God knows, 20 years, 25 years. Asthma is a deficit. I can't fix it. It's there all the time. Drugs can ameliorate it, but it's always with me. And this is the thing about deficits versus delays. Delays I can fix. Delays can be treated. Deficits, you need a lifetime strategy. And lifetime strategies are super hard, right? I mean, my deficits are kind of trivial, really. I mean, there are bigger deficits. If you've got mental illness, if you've got mental health issues, if you've got autism, 1 in 100 children in school today have some form of the autistic spectrum. And one of the things about autism is it doesn't come on its own. It comes with friends like ADHD and developmental coordination disorder. Developmental coordination disorder is also known as dyspraxia, and everybody thinks it's about being a klutz. But actually the really damaging aspect of dyspraxia is it ruins and disables your short-term memory. Ever try and build a strategy when your short-term memory doesn't work? And so the biggest challenge facing people with these kind of mental health issues is they have to build a lifetime strategy, and their strategy creation mechanisms are broken by the deficit that they have. And that requires lots of help. And the help has to come from the community around them, the people around them, the technology around them, and the software around them. I read some of the talks earlier on, and I can only echo them wholeheartedly. Your technology will only get better as you embrace diversity. Nobody ever said on the internet, I made a more diverse product and everything went to shit. It works, right? Turn off the persona of I've read 1 million personas for 1 million software projects. I've shipped 12 commercial software projects in my life. And every persona I've ever read, if you boil it down, it's a man over 40, white Anglo-Saxon, earning over 40,000 a year, right? That's gotta go, right? That's not gonna work for us. We need to inject much more diversity. And so I worked on 2 projects with the Department for Works and Pensions, one 2 years ago and one last year. And the Department for Works and Pensions gets a lot of stick, and it's a big organization. I can say that the people I work with in Manchester on these 2 hackathons are the most sincere, committed individuals I've worked with on practically any hackathon I've done. The first hackathon was all about how do we enfranchise the unemployed in Manchester across all the spectrums. And I know there was a talk earlier on today, and I echo the sentiments. The recruitment market is broken. And it's broken for all of us here, but imagine how much more broken it is if you're unemployed long term, if you have mental health issues, if you've got a criminal record, if you're a low or no skilled employee, if you don't own a mobile phone, if you're homeless. Nobody's solving that problem. So one of the challenges for this group of people was how do we change the way in which jobs are found for these cohorts of individuals? And so they came up with a bunch of amazing technologies. And what I like about hackathons is it asks you big questions and constrains you to very short time frames. It drives innovation in that way. I mean, if you ask a government agency to solve a problem, they'll go put a think tank together and it'll be 2 years and $10 million later. So the great thing about these efforts is it forces outcomes. And one of the outcomes that came out the winner, in fact, was about building a system in which an employee or a candidate employee would look at themselves and the things they wanted to do, and it would build a training program that slowly revealed their options as they acquired the skills. It's overwhelming. And remember, we're talking about people that potentially have mental health issues that tremendously, being overwhelmed by information can be a huge problem. It revealed slowly what your options were as you acquired the skills. It didn't throw you into, here, type in your job spec in indeed.co.uk and get 10 million hits. And the second hackathon was even more interesting. It was, how do we build accessibility for all? And I think it really resonates with the themes of this conference. And what the team that won that one did something I haven't seen a hackathon team do. They said, if we wanted to solve the homeless problem in Manchester, which was what the group they wanted to get accessibility for, how would we do that? Well, we would go out and meet some homeless people. So they took Friday night to go and visit the homeless people in the centre of Manchester. And what they discovered was not a problem that I would have first come to my mind, but actually, like all great ideas, it seems completely self-evident when you hear it coming out from the mouths of the people who are actually suffering. You want to find a shelter, but you're in a nice pitch, it's warm, it might be covered from the rain, and the shelter is 5 miles across town. And if you traipse 5 miles across town, is there going to be a bed available? You don't have a mobile phone, you don't have internet. Mobile phones are currency in the homeless. So even if you have a mobile phone, you'll have it for as long as you want to exchange it for a bottle of beer or whatever. So that's what I'd exchange it for. Or a potato, Andrew. So the thing they came up with was, what if we got a system into the hands of the hostels and allowed them to publicize the availability of beds on all the electronic billboards in the middle of Manchester? And there's lots of them. They're on the bus shelters, there's car parking signs. That way we could communicate with the homeless without them having to have all of this technology. And so I urge you to get away from this thing. Yeah, this is part of the solution, but it's not the only solution. I'm frustrated when I hear technologists, and I'm a technologist and I've done this myself, are we going to build a mobile first or an API first solution? That's not going to work. The existential crisis that faces us in the world today is one of mental health. And the stats tell us the truth about this. In 2016, which is the last place I could find good data for, 817,000 people in the world committed suicide. That's more than all the people that died of malaria. That's more than all the people that died in crimes, in violence, in terrorism, or in wars. And it's only going up. And that is an existential crisis, and it's related to mental health issues, I guarantee you, some massive percentage of it. And so it's incumbent on us to embrace that problem wholeheartedly with every aspect and every part of our being. It can't be, I'm going to do a little bit on the side, I'm going to add a bag at the end of my development that does a little thing here. It's got to be as fundamental a part of your software development as the security infrastructure is. We all freak out about security these days. God knows MongoDB has got enough press about that. And so it's really important that we bake that in. And if I could leave you with one simple idea. H8Y. Put the humanity back in the technology that you build. Thank you very much. I'm Joe Drumgoole.
It's like when you wake up in the morning,